Okay, everyone. It is January 29th, 2020. I hope everybody is having a great week. I am having a great week. Let's try this. I got a little bit of a reverb. Let's try this. I got a little bit of a reverb. Let's try this. I got a little bit of a reverb. Let's try this. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that was interesting, but I think we got the echoes under control. Should have fixed that beforehand. But I think I'm sounding a lot better now. And how's everybody? My week's going pretty good. Pretty busy. Got a lot of stuff to do. And it's been never has really gotten that hot this week in Clearwater Beach, Florida. But still getting some stuff done. Been going out a little bit. I've been trying to do a little bit of work outside of where I live, trying to not be as much of a hermit in 2020. I think I got into some bad habits regarding that last year, and I'm going to try to break that this year. Hello, Laura, and Fishing, and Carrie, Susan, Christine, Sharon, Kathy, Jasmine, Cherie, Gail, Savannah, Ann, Kim, Michelle. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I think I have a good show for you. I think got a lot of things to talk about. And of course, as we do every Wednesday night at the end of this show, I will preview this Friday's episode. Many of you know that as I don't talk about my personal life, private life that much for several different reasons. But although I talk about my dad and some things. Thank you, Nan. You like the lighting? I'm liking the lighting too. Thanks, Gail. I'm liking the lighting a lot as well. Gives me a good chance to see what the heck my hair is doing. This past weekend, I played in a disc golf tournament down in North Fort Myers, Florida, about 2 hours south of here. I went down on Friday, was there till Sunday. And I stayed, coincidentally, at the same Airbnb I stayed at a few weeks before that when I played in Estero. And that was nice. And I finished one stroke short. I finished in second place. The guy that won beat me by a stroke, and I had my chances on Sunday. We all started at the same score. We were all in the lead, tied for the lead. And it's not like I'm talking professional or everything. It was what they call the intermediate division. And we all had the same score, myself and two other guys on the lead card. And one of the guys, his name, young kid, name is Baxter, finished one shot better than myself and the other guy. And so we lost by a stroke. Not even mad about it. I had my chance. I want you all to know I had my chances to win. I look back at that round now, and I had a chance to win for sure, 100%. Just had one bad hole, and then I had another basket where I had one bad shot that really cost me. But I could have won. I really could have. But not mad about it. I mean, the way I've been playing the last few years, to even be able to smell the lead is fantastic. And I'm just going to use that as to build more confidence because I will be playing again, not this weekend, but next weekend I'll be going over to Orlando to play in a big tournament over there. Savannah says all the new mics make all the difference. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Hindsight is 2020. Hello, James. Yeah, hindsight is 2020, Nana. That's funny. And James, what's going on? But not mad at all. The kid that won, good kid, played obviously well enough to win. I'm sure he looks back at that round and thinks that some things he could have done better. But I was happy for him, was not bitter at all, and that's kind of like because I'm a little competitive. But it was good to be out there, had a good time, never played on that course before, so to play as well as I did on a course I'd never played on before is certainly something. Like I said, in 2 weeks, I'll be going over to Orlando where I embarrassed myself back in August. So we'll see what happens. And then the week after that, I have another tournament, but it's right here in the Tampa area. And then after that, I'm off for a month. So that's what I got going on in the disc golf world for like the next month and a half. Some of you have already noticed the lighting. Michelle says redemption time over in Orlando. That is certainly true, Michelle. Certainly redemption time. Need to get a little revenge after how poorly I played there, where I just quit after the first round back in August. It was really embarrassing. But thank you all for noticing the lighting. I know I talked about it last week, but it did not take a lot of money to get these lights. If you're wondering what one of these lights looks like, I'll show it to you. You might want to squint for a second, but this is what one of these lights looks like. And because it's so bright, I don't point it straight at me, because if I did, I'd be seeing spots. I'd be blinded. So I have the lights like turned away, and that is enough to get enough good light. What's going on, Laura? Hi. Thanks for making it tonight. But this is the lighting. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. And once again, I have to thank my assistants who kicked me in the butt and said, you know what, Ed, I think it's time. Now, maybe you did notice maybe something new in the background, and that is my guitar. I'm moving some things around in my place. Just trying to make it a little more user-friendly. And one of the things I did was I moved you. What you can't see is the guitar is sitting on kind of an ottoman type of thing, and it's sitting on there, resting up against the wall. And I've moved that ottoman in here, and now the guitar's there. I'm not saying that's where it's going to stay, but if you're saying, "Hey, I never saw that guitar before," that's the reason it's sitting there. And I doubt it will stay there for long. But I am rearranging some things, moving some lamps, moving some tables. Probably going to be moving a couple more things into this bedroom and out of the other rooms. So I have some interior design plans. I don't believe in feng shui or whatever that is. It all, for me, comes down to pragmatism and what works for me. And I'll be doing that over the next few days, just trying to rearrange some things, making everything a little more user-friendly. Let's talk about the poll from last Friday, from last Friday's episode, the disappearance of Patrick Reed. And a large majority of you do not believe that Patrick ever did go to Florida with CD, a guy whose name is Charles Napier. A large majority of people in the discussion group do not believe that story. I have to tell you that in writing my blog for Patreon, I have the exact opposite idea. I think there was a plan to go to Florida between Charles and Patrick, but that's not what ended up happening. And if you are a Patreon member, you can go check and see what I wrote regarding that. You only have to be in at the $2 a month level, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more in a second. But the poll, a large majority of you do not believe that story. And I'm not, if we knew what happened, we'd just go solve it right now. But for some reason, my opinions lean in a different direction. So there you go. Hello, Ellie, or L, E-L-L-E, Ellie, or L. Good to see you tonight. One thing I also wanted to say, and I know that Carrie is in here, is that Carrie is going to be assisting, one of my assistants is going to be assisting Charlotte in getting Patrick on NamUs and get that whole process started. If nothing else comes from Covering Patrick Reed's disappearance. I hope the main thing is that he gets on NamUs, all that paperwork gets started, the DNA is collected. That I think that'll go a long way, because I can't shake the idea that Patrick's remains are out there somewhere and there just hasn't been any DNA to test it against yet. I can't get that out of my head. I may totally end up being proven wrong, but that is something that I continue to think about regarding that case. And and if that does happen, wherever his remains were found, then I think that will tell us a lot more about whether CD's story is true or not true. Of course, if his remains have been found, Patrick's remains, and they were found in Florida, then of course I'm inclined to believe that the story was true and something happened once Patrick got here. But if his remains are found in Texas or Kansas or something, then I think we can come to maybe a different conclusion. The tough part is that Charles Napier is deceased. Michelle says, I'm with you, Ed. I believe something like that too. You believe that they ended up trying at least to go to Florida. Okay, Michelle. Nana says it was so sad that everyone lost contact with him, and now 20 years later, it's just getting done. I know, Nana. I know. Gail, hopefully they can bring him home. Hopefully, Gail. Hopefully. Ellie says, I wish we had national standards for NamUs. Yeah, that it's been talked about quite a bit, Ellie. I don't. Obviously, some states have it, some states don't. As you've heard, when Maureen Righteous was on, she even stated that a lot of police departments are against it because it's more work for them, which you hate hearing, but that's what she says. And she's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and I think that she's more involved in that stuff than I have been. So I have no choice but to believe her, and I do believe her. Not no choice, but I do believe her that there just are a lot of police officers, the police departments, that don't want any more paperwork. And so they hesitate or totally blow off starting the NamUs process. But as we were learning, private people can do it on their own, and that's why I've put Charlotte in contact with Carrie, my assistant, who has some experience in that area. So there's that. I just mentioned Patreon. I want to talk about that for a little bit. Obviously, if you watch the show every week, you know that I talk about Patreon every week. And the reason I'm talking about it this week is because it came up in a discussion with a guy who contacted me and was asking me about, frankly, the Jennifer Cassie case and everything else. And, and then he started asking me about some opinions on some of Unfound's cases. And I told him that, if you really want to know my opinions on the cases, you should just sign up for Patreon. It's only $2 a month. And you automatically get access to about 130 blog entries, with the average length of them being 3,000 words every week. I write 3,000 words every week regarding each case, each episode of Unfound. It's about right. It averages out. Some are like 3,500, some are 2,500, some are 4,000, some are 2,000. It just depends on the case and everything going on. But I have to tell you, I don't stop writing until I think I've said everything that I need to say. So you just never know how long the blog is going to be, but it usually comes out to around 3,000 words. So anybody who feels like talking to me about my opinions about Unfound cases, first of all, as you would expect, I'm a busy guy, and I was telling this guy the same thing, is that I really don't talk to listeners too much about their opinions on cases. I love getting emails from listeners, and I love all of you tuning in tonight. But I have to tell you, on the other hand, if I were to get into deep discussions about cases Unfound hasn't even covered, going back and forth, I'd never get any work done. All right. I'd never get any Unfound work done. That's just a fact. So I don't have a lot of time in my schedule to go back and forth with listeners, and trust me, and I've gotten some emails that are long, very detailed theories about disappearances all over the United States. And sometimes I get the feeling that these people writing me expect me to write that length in return. It's just not, I have to admit, that's an unreasonable expectation. And I don't mind talking about other disappearances that Unfound hasn't covered on this particular show, because that's kind of what we do. That was always the plan from the start. But when it comes to communicating with listeners about opinions, my opinions on cases, it's very difficult for me to do. So that's why I say, if you're interested in my opinions, which I do not give out on episodes, as you know, but I do write about them in the private blog on Patreon. If you're interested in that, it's only $2 a month. Now, granted, you won't get some of the other things. You won't get a long list of ebooks like people who sign up for the higher tiers get. You won't get to be part of the think tank that occurs every week, which I know everybody that's in it loves it. But if you want to see what goes on inside my head regarding these cases and what I write about, then you should do that for only $2 a month. Now, if you'd like to be a part of the think tank and some other things, then you need to step up to the $12 a month level, which is, of course, an additional $10 a month. But it's the reason it's that expensive is because I'm, not that I would turn down people, signing up at the $12 a month level, but I know a lot of people can't do that. And that kind of keeps the think tank kind of smaller, which then allows more one-on-one conversation. It just does. And I think that's best for what we're trying to do in the think tank, which is, voice everybody's opinions, and everybody can have opinions on everybody's opinions. Whereas you get 40, 50, or, as many viewers as we get in this show, that becomes a lot more difficult, because in the think tank, we just talk about one thing, the case for that week. That's it. That's all we talk about. Screaming says, David Polides never says it directly, but I think he implies that Bigfoot is responsible for most of the 411 missing persons cases. I've talked about David Polides before, and I don't feel like talking about him tonight, Screaming, unfortunately. Carrie, the blogs get pretty in-depth. Carrie, thank you for saying that. I try to be in-depth. I try to be. And I'm a good typist, so I can crank out 3,000 words pretty quickly. And as you would expect, I kind of already know what I'm going to write about before I sit down to write it. But it still does take some time. But being that I have a writing background, it might not be as difficult as maybe some other podcasters who might try to do something like that. Thank you, Ellie. Katie, your analyst on Patreon is a highlight for me. You go much deeper than you do on the show. I would highly recommend other people joining. Katie, that's very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I do go much deeper than on the program because I don't express my opinions on the Friday program, what is known as Unfound, because I'm not here to influence any listeners' opinions. All right? I don't want to do that. I want you all to come to your own ideas, own theories. And I know that as soon as I start expressing my opinions, I know, and I've seen it, then people start changing their minds and going along with me. And that's not what I want. I don't mind that people disagree with me about these cases. I don't. And I want free thinkers. However, I do know that people do want to know what I'm thinking, and that's why I do it at Patreon. That's why I do that there. Thank you, Katie. And the blog will exist as long as Unfound exists, because I do enjoy writing that, because I just don't get into the facts and my theories, but I do write about missing person theory in general and trying to relate that particular disappearance for that week to other disappearances that Unfound is covered, and trying to draw some comparisons, compare and contrast, and I really like doing that. LOL, like that, Whitney. I'm not sure what that means, Michelle. Carrie, I highly recommend the $12 level think tank as a roundtable deep dive thinking into Keisha's cases each week. Thank you, Carrie. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/unfound podcast. Thank you, Kathy, for the compliment there. Christine, thank you. Thank you, Ellie. So that's what it just came up in a conversation with the guy that was asking me a lot of questions about Jennifer Kessie's case and then some of Unfound's cases. And I just told him that, I can't afford to write in depth about cases that Unfound doesn't cover. But if you want in-depth coverage of the cases Unfound has covered, then it's $2 a month. What's that? 30 days in a month into $2 is like 6 cents, 6.667 cents a day. It's a pretty good deal, I think, especially considering that as soon as you sign up, you get access to 130 blogs, 3,000 words each. That's a lot of writing. That's a lot of reading to do. A lot. Michelle Whitney House said Whitney was in the house. Too funny. Yes, that's yes. Sheree says you can also support show your support by subscribing and liking the episodes in the new YouTube channel. Yes, let's move on from Patreon. Thank you, Sheree. Let's move on to YouTube. A lot of stuff going on this channel right now. Maybe you notice it. Maybe you notice the watermark that have been appearing on many of Unfound's videos, although I don't see it on the thing tonight, show tonight. But down in this, what is it? This corner right here. How do I get it on there? Right here. Right there. It's tough doing that. There's a watermark with the Unfound logo. You will now see that we have some playlists, collections of videos put together. In fact, there's one, I think, for Tom Brown's Disappearance all by itself. Been so much material that we have for that Disappearance. I've talked to Natasha. I've suggested that she make a playlist regarding each case, classifying the playlist by states. So all the ones for Texas will be on one playlist. All the ones for California, Florida, wherever Unfound is gone, those states' cases will be together. That was a suggestion I made to her. Was it yesterday? So she's been doing quite a bit regarding this. She's also up on keeping track of what the stats are. And this is all an attempt to start moving toward being able to monetize the YouTube channel. Once again, the channel that you're watching right now, because the channel is not monetized. It's been around for a few years now. It's not monetized. One of the main reasons. Oh, screaming! You can see the logo. Okay, great. Thank you. It's there. I can't see it on my thing. Okay. But this is so the channel is not monetized, and it should be. It should be by this point. And one of the big reasons has been because early on, some of the first year and so many months of the show, I was using copywritten music. I was using the intro to the Iron Maiden song, The Great Unknown. Well, you can't do that and get monetized. So what Natasha has done is gone back through those old podcasts, the MP3 files, and put in the new music. She's been doing that as well, and she's doing a fine job of it. And once that's all done, I don't know how close she is to being done, but so she has to do the beginning and the end of every episode, so that would be about 70 episodes, something like that. Once that's all done, then thank you for the rock on. Thank you for the sign there, Ellie. Once that's done, then we can get one step closer to being able to monetize the channel. Something else that you might recognize if you're looking at all of these new videos that Natasha has been putting up is that there are now promos in them. So as The show is playing. The episode is playing. Once there'll be pictures, of course, of the missing person or any other materials we have, photos that are relevant to the disappearance. Then once in a while, you will see a promo maybe for this show on Wednesday nights, the books on Amazon, Patreon, etc. Okay. The only stipulation I have regarding posting that, is there are no promos during interviews. So you will see promos, me talking before, in like the 7 or 8 minutes I talk before the interview starts, and you will see promos after the interview, but no promos during the interviews. Now, granted, nothing stops the interview. Everything continues to play. All it is video. There's no audio that goes along with the promos. It's not a commercial like on TV or something, like on the radio. It's just a promo. It's just a picture that comes up. But no pictures of promos come up during interviews. Okay, because that just feels very tacky and wrong to me. So you'll probably see some at the beginning, at the end. So that's one more other change that that you're going to see with the videos themselves. So a lot of things going on there. She knows what she's doing with it. I kind of know it, but just once again, with time. Time is the issue. And so Natasha came forward, toward the end of last year, and now she's part of the team as well. So continue to look for other changes happening on the YouTube channel. And, we're just trying to, I think, compared to a lot of other true crime programs, Unfound does not really have that many subscribers on YouTube. Now, I think the main reason is because Unfound is not a YouTube-based program. Okay, unlike, for example, John with Brain Scratch. That's all he does. He doesn't do a podcast. He does videos on YouTube, and so his subscribership is way higher than Unfound's, and that's fine. This isn't a competition. But I do realize, though, that given the amount of downloads that Unfound gets on a weekly basis, that the subscription rate should be higher. But once again, I think it's the reason is that this is an audio program, and then the video just supplements it. Whereas, once again, like John Lordan's program, and there's some others, their main focus is video. And so that's why they have more subscribers than Unfound does. Once again, we're not in a competition, but I certainly wouldn't turn down having as many subscribers as they do. But I think that we have to work toward that. It shouldn't be an automatic thing. I can look, as Natasha and I have talked about, she and I have talked about some of these other programs that are on YouTube. And frankly, to this point, they've just been better set up, frankly. And now we're trying to catch up a little bit. And I think each day we're getting closer, but it just hasn't been a main focus because Unfound is an audio program, not a video one, but we also realize that video is very important. Christine, I have covered disappearances in Canada. I covered Bonnie Joseph's disappearance. I've covered Lucas Degerness's disappearance. I've covered Sean Gignard's disappearance. And I'm forgetting the one. What is her name? She has the very where is it? I can look in the list right here real quick. And I apologize beforehand. Immaculate Basil is another case that we covered from Canada. So yes, we have covered some Canadian disappearances, Christine, going back to 2018, 2019. We haven't covered any Canadian ones recently, not for a lack of trying though. So yes, we have covered some disappearances in Canada. Iron Maiden and disc golf equals awesome. Screaming, totally agree. Totally agree. In fact, I've thought about, as a disc golfer, I know a lot of disc golfers get really into really having pretty discs and getting unique pictures on the discs. I do have to admit, I've thought about getting a couple of my discs stamped with Iron Maiden's mascot, Eddie, on it. I think that would be fantastic. Haven't done it yet. Thank you, Carrie. Here's the list right there. There we go. Kathy's, Lucas Degerness, Bonnie Joseph, Immaculate, Basil, Sean Ginyard, as well, disappeared from Thompson, Canada. We certainly are lucky to have Natasha doing a lot of great work. Screaming says, hit the thumbs up button to help Ed out. Yes, yeah. I see some of you have. I know we have way more people watching than have hit the like button. So that little thumbs up certainly does help things. If you see this little, there we go. There's another one right there. There's another one that just got registered. Thank you. See, these are the things. And it's nobody's fault but mine. You know, I am ultimately responsible for everything that happens. And so the reason that Unfound, despite its popularity, the reason we've kind of been lagging in YouTube is because I haven't had time to focus on it. So it's good that we now have somebody that does that, and she knows what she's doing. Most importantly, that helps too. So there you go. So I think 2020 is going to be a big year for the YouTube channel where you are right now. I just can't help but think that. Let's talk about, as you know, this isn't a disappearance, but you know that I have a morbid fascination with aircraft crashes. So I feel like I have to, for at least a few minutes, talk about the helicopter crash that Kobe Bryant and his daughter and many others were killed in this past Sunday morning. And in fact, I've written about it. Of course, the newsletter for February is going to be coming out Saturday, and I write about it. I've already written part of the newsletter. That will be in the newsletter as well. If you're not on the newsletter list, contact me personally. I will get you on the list. But it'll be coming out Saturday, and I write about Kobe Bryant's death, the helicopter crash, and kind of give the generalities of why it happened. And although I'm not a pilot, I have been studying airplane crashes for about 30 years. Seriously. And the reason it got started is because back then I had a very strong fear of flying. And I decided the way to get over it is to find out, why do planes crash? And from that, I started learning all these things about plane crashes, to the point where I've kind of become a little bit of an encyclopedia of plane crashes. And the main point you have to understand about his crash is they shouldn't have been up in the air in the first place. This is a crash that was totally preventable. I believe that they're not going to find any sort of mechanical failure or anything like that. The truth is that they shouldn't have been going up, considering the conditions. Between the fog that was low and the clouds that were low, fog down on the ground, and the clouds that were low, there was this very small band in which the helicopter, under those rules that they were flying, could fly. And what happened, as it was in the flat area of LA, once it started getting up into the mountains, what happened? The elevation starts rising, so the fog starts rising, and the clouds get closer and closer and closer until they meet. And so it's fog and clouds together. There's no visibility. And at that point, the helicopter pilot should have figured out, you know what? I gotta turn around. Yeah. IFR, I don't want to start using initial screaming, yes, but because most people aren't going to understand that. I don't want to start getting into that. But that's how you should look at it. Fog low, clouds were low, and then as he started flying into the mountains, what happens? The fog follows the terrain of the land. So the fog starts rising, and eventually the fog meets the clouds. And of course, it all looks the same eventually once they meet. But that envelope, that little window where the helicopter can fly with no problem, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. When the pilot saw that, he should have turned around and gone back to the airport, period. Now, why didn't he do that? Probably a few different reasons. Probably felt like, I got to get Kobe and all these people to where they need to go. There was probably a pressure there to get them there on time. There might have been an overconfidence by the pilot, thinking he was a very skilled pilot, very knowledgeable, was everything else. Might have overestimated abilities, and considering the conditions. And on top of that, put that all together, and there's a pressure factor. And all it takes in that is for a pilot to not look at his instruments at the wrong time, and what you get is spatial disorientation, because with the fog and everything around you, you can't see the ground. Things don't feel the way they should feel. Humans were not meant to fly. And you've maybe heard about spatial disorientation in jet crashes, where pilots thought they were banking to the left when really they were banking to the right. They were following their feelings instead of looking at their instruments. And that causes a lot of plane crashes. So I can't rule that out, in this instance as well. He could have gotten disoriented in the fog, thought he was going up when really he was going down. And that's what caused the crash. I mean, they were flying at 170 miles an hour when they crashed. So, he might have gotten lost as to where he was. He thought the mountain, it was not like the Himalayas, but a mountain that they hit into. He might have thought they'd already passed it. Just should have never been there. Should have never been there. And it's a damn shame. And I'm not even a huge Kobe Bryant fan. I'm not into the NBA. But I do know that he had an effect on a lot of people, a lot of positive effects on a lot of people over a very long time. And, 41 years old is what he was. He had a lot of years to go. And he leaves behind his wife and his other daughters, and it's terrible. But I'm telling all of you that should you ever have the chance to get, even if none of you have a pilot's license or anything else, do not get in a private helicopter or a private plane if there is fog or clouds. Don't do it. Don't listen to the pilot. Don't listen to the other people that are with you. For example, a lot of people have a chance to go on helicopters, like they go on a cruise and there's an excursion. I know they do that up in Alaska. You fly to like a glacier or things. If there looks like there is fog over there, don't go. Don't go. And should you happen to be clear and you're in an airplane or a helicopter and suddenly there is fog or clouds, you tell that pilot to turn around. Period. Turn around, go back to the airport, period. Just don't even mess with it. Now, commercial airliners, different. Totally different situation. Now, not to say they don't have their own crashes because of fog and everything else, but as we know, when you're flying in an airliner, you fly above the clouds and you're only landing or taking off in the clouds for a very short time. Whereas helicopters and your private planes, your propeller planes, they're much lower, so they are more affected by fog in the clouds. I personally will never get in a helicopter or a private plane, period. Period. Ever. Never. But if you're into that, only go up when it's clear. Don't even take the chance. Don't even take the chance. That's what I would recommend to all of you. And I think that's what the public should learn from Kobe's, this helicopter crash, that it's just not worth it. Yes, driving in a car is statistically more dangerous than flying, But here's what I know. Them getting in a limo or something, going from LA to going out to Thousand Oaks on that particular day was safer than getting in a small plane or a helicopter to fly over there. That's what I know on that particular day, for sure. So it's there's going to be a lot of videos on this. If I could recommend a guy who does a great job explaining it for himself because he is a pilot, go to the Blanco Lirio channel, Blancolio. I'm a big fan of that channel because he talks a lot about jets and flying and things. And he's done a couple very good videos on the helicopter crash so far. I recommend you check that YouTube channel out. Blanco Lirio, good guy, very knowledgeable. Screaming says, I listened to the air traffic audio of that flight and they lost communication a minute before the helicopter crashed. Yeah, they lost radar on him because the helicopter was flying so low. The air traffic controller couldn't even help the pilot because he was off radar. That's how low the helicopter was. Had they been flying high enough, even if they were in the clouds, it still would have been very disorienting, but maybe the air traffic controller could have turned the guy around and sent it, got him back, to the airport, maybe. Iron Maiden, a guy I dated in high school made me attend an Iron Maiden show in return for him going to a Joe Jackson show with me. Well, I don't know where you ended up with him, Katie, but if you liked Iron Maiden, he couldn't have been too bad. Ellie said, I was in LA at the time, and LAX never did seem like that. Commented on several times Saturday Night Aviation Family. Ellie says the fog was awful. Yeah, it looked it. Kathy says Kobe's helicopter should have never taken off. True. Sasha, hello, and everyone. The lighting's a lot brighter, and your audio is clear in more tone. Great live. Thank you, Sasha. Yeah, the audio's improved some now that we don't have to use Wirecast anymore. Fog is very dangerous, no matter what, in a car too. That's true, Kathy. But I will take driving in a car in the fog over flying in a helicopter in the fog any day. Kathy hates flying too. I take it you don't skydive. I do not. Ellie says the fog was insane. Sasha says, I agree, safety first. Rest in peace to all the families and the victims. I love flying, but Carrie says, I love flying, but won't ever jump from a plane or helicopter. That is a huge nope. Okay. Not jumping out of a perfectly fine plane or helicopter. Me neither, Carrie. I just don't need to add those kind of, I guess you'd call them thrills to my life. I just don't need that in my life. I know people do it over and they love it. Bungee jumping and stuff. That's not really my thing. So, what you just need to remember is that I think that they will eventually decide the helicopter, they should have never been doing what they were doing. It was a very, very bad decision. Let's answer some questions. I did have some questions get asked of me before the show started tonight. So let me take a crack at them right now. Larry, Larry. Larry Cousins from the discussion group likes to be the contrarian. But I want you to know that I have talked to Larry privately through Facebook many times, maybe going not quite back a year. I want you to all know he's a good guy. I know he's been accused of a lot of things and everything. I want you to know that he's a good guy. He's just a little bit of a contrarian. But he asked me how I put on my socks and shoes. Do I do like sock, then shoe on one foot, then sock and shoe on the other foot? Or do I do socks on both feet, then shoes on both feet? I'm a socks on both feet, shoes on both feet type of guy. I don't know why that is. I don't know if I can even, I don't know if I've ever even done it the other way. Once again, with sock, shoe. I do sock, shoe. And what shoe I pick first, what foot I pick first, it just depends. But and even him asking that question, I don't even know why I remembered this, but there was an old episode of All in the Family where Archie Bunker and Meathead get into a discussion, an argument about that, about which way is better. But I'm a sock, shoe guy, not a sock, shoe type of guy. In fact, being in Florida, the only time I ever wear socks is when I go to play disc golf. Otherwise, I'm wearing sandals, or as they become the known mandals, but mine are kind of nice. I wear socks and shoes when I go to play disc golf. That's about it. Carrie says Larry isn't all what he's made out to be. That is true, Carrie. Okay. Next question from Leah. How many cases have you covered? Covered about 100, and there's been about 170 episodes. But the cases, of course, are less than that because we have had some update episodes, etc. I think that we've covered about 160 disappearance cases, Leah, since September of 2016. And she asked me, how many of those people, how many do I think are still alive? Well, I would never pick out any names, but I would say I believe that there are at least a few, but I do not believe it's very many. If it is over 10 out of the 160 disappearances we've covered, I would be surprised, Leah. I don't know if you're watching tonight or what, but if it's over 10, I would be very surprised. Very surprised. For a lot of different reasons. I know that in my head, I have a couple cases right off the top of my head where I think those people might still be alive. Once again, never mention them because I don't want to pick and choose like that, but it's still a very small number. I would say, once again, under 10. So 5%, maybe 5% of the cases that Unfound is covered, do I believe the missing person is still alive? Meaning the person took off on their own, or maybe in a much more unfortunate situation, they got sex trafficked. Leah, I think it's a very, very small number. And then she also asked me, of all the cases, how many of them are solvable? They're all solvable. I mean, if the suspects grow a conscience tomorrow and then all come forward, then they're all solvable. Those ones that what I would term to be murders, then those ones become solvable very quickly. But I think what Leah is asking me is how many will actually be solved. And as I've stated before, unfortunately, that my opinion is that, hopefully, let's say I live on the earth for 30 more years. Let's hope I make it another 30 years. Unfortunately, I believe that there will still be many of Unfound's cases that we've already covered that aren't solved. I think statistically, that's the only logical conclusion I can come to. Sucks, but that's probably the truth. That we've covered 160. I happen to believe that many of those will still not be solved 30 years from now. Why is that? I'd have to start getting into the particulars of the cases to say why, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying statistically what the stats say is many of them will not be solved. The remains won't be found. Nobody will be charged. Nothing 30 years from now. Kathy says 156 cases to date. Thank you for counting them, Kathy. Yes. So I would say about 5% of the people at the most are still alive out there somewhere. And then of those 156, I got to say many of them, I'm not saying it's 50%. I'm not saying it's 75%. I just want to use the word many. Many of them, unfortunately, will will be unsolved 30 years from now. That's what the stats say. So I hope that answers your questions, Leah. Suzanne asked me, have I thought any more about private investigator license? I have, Suzanne, and I've not dismissed it yet. It's still a possibility. Still thinking about it. The big question, the big issue is that, do I have the time to put into making it happen? That's really the big point. Do I have the time? And I think when I was originally asked by this sometime maybe back in October or something, the other issues, you have to go to classes, and you have to do an internship and everything. And when I start hearing internships and classes and things, I start to get the willies. That's not really what it's not part of my personality. So that's probably going to be a detriment. That does not make me want to get my license. That actually makes me not want to get my license. But we'll see. We'll see. Ellie says, do it. I was excited to hear this. You would be so great, Ellie. You're very kind. I thank you on that. But I will tell you this. If I do it, it would not be for monetary reasons. The reason I would do it is to start to lend some more credibility to a profession that certainly needs it. That's why I would do it. My goal would be start to give some credibility, because I just hear too many stories about licensed private investigators who are nothing but scams. And I think by becoming one, then I could even be more vocal about it, being that then I would be one too. And so, there wouldn't be maybe this idea out there, well, Ed can't talk about, he's not even a private investigator, he doesn't know anything about it, he's never been. Well, I could simply change that by becoming one, and then I would have my own soapbox to stand on. Let's put it that way. So there you go. Very much, I would have to say, not to get too deep into this, pretty much kind of what Unfound is trying to do with true crime podcasting. We all know that there are programs out there, podcasts out there, that the only reason they cover true crime is because it's popular. That's the only reason. And if some other topic was popular, those people would be doing that. They don't necessarily care about solving cases or anything else. They're just using disappearances and serial killers and murderers and everything else to benefit themselves. All right? And I would like to think that Unfound is the opposite of that. And that's one more reason why I started Unfound, that we're going to do something different. We're actually going to talk about the cases because they need solved, not because myself or any of my assistants want to become popular and public figures or anything else. Okay, the goal is to solve cases. All right, the goal isn't to sell stuff. So there you go. So what we've been trying to do over the last 3.5 years regarding true crime podcasting and disappearances and everything, if I were to try to be a private investigator, it would be the same idea. Okay? It would be the same idea. Oh, this Unfound shirt. I have to love the Unfound shirt. I think you might have more access to the cases. Don't you think so? It's funny you mentioned this. This Unfound shirt was made by my sister, Diane. It's just a regular black collared shirt, as you can see. And then I gave her the logo, and she stitched that into the right here. It's a fantastic shirt. Very high quality, which, knowing my sister, no surprise. But yeah, I decided to wear it tonight. I haven't worn this shirt in a long, long time for any video show that I do. But there you go. There you go. Thank you for noticing that, EB. I was going to talk about it tonight and forgot. Thank you for reminding me. But she also says, I think you might have more access to the cases. Don't you think so? I really don't know, EB. I don't know. I've been told that I would have more access to databases and things. I don't really know what that means, though. So I don't know. Michelle says, and a lot of other programs do a really bad, inaccurate account and don't speak to families. They do not. That is true. The scam PI thing is so disgusting. Preying upon desperate families is sickening. And they do it, and it's happening right now. It happens every day, Katie. And that's why I tell all of the guests that I talk to, you think you're going to talk to somebody, you come talk to me first, and we'll talk about it. Okay? Before you start giving a cent to anybody, come talk to me. We'll talk about it and see if it's something that you really want to do. What is this person's background? What is their experience? What do other people say about them? Let's just not, let's not rush into it. You come talk to me and I will be honest with them. So true, no research, 15 minutes regurgitation. That's what some programs are. That's true, Ellie. Thank you for the compliments on the shirt. Cherie says, doesn't seem to really be helping some of the PIs. I know. Okay, Cherie. Yeah. But so the PI question, something that I'm still throwing around in my head. Once again, it's a time issue, and it's an issue of whether really I can commit to the things you have to do to become one. Okay, those are the issues. Christine, what do you think of trace evidence? Really, Christine, I don't know enough about it to give you an opinion. Michelle, Brandy's sister was scanned by a PI, and I tried to warn her, and then she just disappeared herself. Can't even find her to discuss the issue. Wow. Brandy's sister disappeared too, Michelle? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Didn't know that, Michelle. Keep me posted on that, please. Or, I know you talked to Emily as well. The PI disappeared. Oh, then she just disappeared herself. Oh, okay. I miss some pronouns in there that I misinterpreted. Oh, the PI disappeared. Okay, yeah. Then that does maybe make more sense. Okay. All right. That happens. Okay. Speaking of crooked people, investigators, I want to tell you about and I posted this in the group today. My hometown is Leechburg, Pennsylvania. I grew up there. I went to Leechburg High School. I graduated in 1989. I left there in 1998 to move to Las Vegas, and my parents moved from there in 2004. And my dad still does live in Renfrew, Pennsylvania, which is near Butler, PA. And Leechburg has been quite through a bad situation in the past few years. Their police chief was Mike Diebold, Diebold. I think in general he's thought of being a pretty decent guy, although since everything that has happened in the last few years, my best friend's father, before he died, was also a police officer in the area, and he did not have a very high opinion of Mike Diebold. But Mike Diebold, in general, was thought of being a pretty decent guy. And what was it, 2017, unfortunately, during 4th of July, he blew part of his arm off with a firecracker, with fireworks. And the entire Leechburg community, very small. Leechburg is kind of now a rundown steel town. But the community rallied around him, had benefits for him, raised money for him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, all these stories about him and how he was going to come back and was he going to get to stay to be police chief even though he was missing part of his arm, on and on and on. 5 months later, he was caught petitioning a young girl on the internet for sex. And that young girl was not a young girl. Actually, it was an undercover cop. And Mike Diebold's went to meet this, what he thought was going to be a little girl. And of course, they ended up catching him and charging him. And since then, it's really been it's been a very bad mark for Leechburg. I mean, it's just, this guy went from getting all this sympathy and attention and everything to then the lowest of the lowest of the lowest of the lowest to the, I mean, if you want to get into Dante's Inferno, the lowest ring of hell. He went from there down, high down to the lowest ring of hell. And he continues to be in the news because, he's been on house arrest and this and that, and he's violating all of it. He wasn't, his wife is divorcing him. He's supposed to stay away from contacting her. He does that. He's not supposed to have internet access. Somehow he gets internet access. It's just been a huge, very bad mark on my hometown. And I've posted on it. You can do you can do a Google search regarding him. It was national news. I mean, when he got caught trying to meet a little girl, for sex, that made national news because he was a police chief, because of what had happened months before, where everybody was putting him on a pedestal and everything, trying to help him out. That made national news. Well, now he's just been in news within the last couple days. And, it reminds me that you just can never rule anything out, regarding people. You just can't. I know for me personally, I don't talk to strangers on the internet, at all. I talk to my assistants. I talk to my friends on Facebook. Obviously, I get emails from listeners and that, but these people, whether it's, you're looking for adults or otherwise, I just can't understand any of it. I just don't understand any of it. So, I just it's one of those topics that boggles my mind. It just does. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. Then on top of that, meeting strangers over the internet, even once again, even if it's adults, unless you've had, rapport and, internet dating, of course, very popular with Match.com, all those things. I get all of that. But, I know that there are chat rooms out there and everything. And I don't know. It's just horrible. So that's why Leechburg has been in the news. Leechburg, it seems, these days, if it gets in the news, it's nothing but bad news. And since the steel company Allegheny Ludlam moved out of that town, it is certainly gone. It's not really the same town that I grew up in 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 40 years ago. It's just not. And it's a dang shame. It really is a dang shame. So I just wanted to talk about that. We do talk about crooked cops once in a while, and we know the statistic that I keep telling everybody: 10% of unfound cases has a police officer or law enforcement officer as a suspect. And so that's what I think of when I think about the Mike Diebold case. and what went on there. So I just wanted to mention that. Let me move on to something else, and then we've gone for over an hour, so I'll move on to the disappearance this Friday. Kristen Smart, I talked about it a week ago. There was news that some stuff was going to be coming out. Of course, nothing has come out yet, so I don't know what to make of that. I've not talked to Dennis Mahan this week. I don't know, so I don't know if he knows anything or not. He's not texted me anything, but you're told next couple of weeks there's going to be news, and then just as that is said, it completely drops out of the news again. So I don't know what to make of that. I just don't. But I'll keep my eyes peeled. Maybe I do want to talk about one more thing. I can't tell you where I got this information, unfortunately, but it has to do with the Jennifer Cassie case, and I just want to run something by you. And the information comes, I just kind of strayed into this while I was talking to this person about something totally different. And it was not this listener who I mentioned earlier who emailed me that was asking about the Jennifer Cassie case. Not him, somebody else. This person said, and I think I know a lot about the Jennifer Cassie case, and I know a lot of people suspect migrant workers, and I've voiced my opinion on it. Everybody has their own, theories, and there's this. Well, Jennifer might have been sighted in a truck with a couple people that night. But here is something I'd never heard about the case, and I want to run it by you if you've ever heard this. That a possible suspect in the disappearance was a guy who worked at a Chinese restaurant who knew Jennifer, who had been admiring her from afar. And that this particular guy, at the time of Jennifer's disappearance, had kind of the bowl cut like the person who parked her car in that apartment complex, and of course got away, and with the face being blocked out, horrible timing on that video camera's part, but being blocked out by the bars of that fence. This just kind of came, once again, I was talking to this person on the phone about something totally different, a totally different case that I think that Unfound is probably going to cover in the near future. But then this person said this about the Jennifer Cassie case, and this person, let me put it this way, might be in a position to know something like this. And when this person said that to me, I was like, nope, never heard that. I've heard a lot of different theories, but this person says that, in this person's opinion, that this guy who worked at this Chinese restaurant, who admired Jennifer, liked her, but, how do I put it? Maybe she was a little out of his league. Is the best suspect for her disappearance, because we're talking about the case that Unfound is eventually going to cover. Then this person, because this person found out that I was in Florida, asked me about Jennifer Cassie's case. And then this person said, well, I think I know who did it. And I said, well, what do you think? And I was expecting, the popular theories. And then this came out of this person's mouth. And I said, wow, I never heard that before. And this person said yes, but the police, have kind of blown that lead off. That's what this person said. So as soon as I heard that, I said, the next time I do a live show, I'm going to ask all of you about it. And if any of you have ever heard anything about this particular person, because I don't know how much it's out there. I didn't go to Google and try to find out if this is a popular theory or if this is a theory at all. Is it a, behind the scenes theory? Is it a public theory that I've never heard about? That just I haven't run across, but it is out there. So I'm asking all of you once again. This person said that the best suspect, in this person's opinion, once again, this person would be possibly in a position to know. Said that yeah, it's this guy that works at a Chinese restaurant. Wanted to go out with Jennifer. She was blowing him off, so he was admiring her from afar. And then at the time, he had a haircut similar to the person who parked that car in that apartment complex. So I'm just asking all of you if you heard that before. Elizabeth says never heard that. Kathy says never heard that. Sounds possible. Carrie sounds super plausible, but maybe not stated publicly for a reason. Cherie says, I would think that if that was true, then it was certainly checked out. You would think, but this person led me to believe that the police were not taking it seriously. And this person was kind of miffed about it. Carrie sounds like would be someone that needs to be dug into hard. Elizabeth, had this person been questioned? I have no idea. I didn't even know about this till less than a week ago, Elizabeth, so I don't know. And this person, once again, the person I talked to said that the police kind of blew that lead off. I don't know. Carrie, I do know personally of some cases the public people were cleared, but not really for various reasons, mostly because they want to babysit the person. Maybe. Well, you know, it's been 15 years with Jennifer Kessie's disappearance, so I just don't know what to think. So, you know, I guess what I'm saying is that if this was coming from some crank, you know, just making up something, then I would be like, okay, but it wasn't coming from somebody like that. So, EB says, after watching some stalker videos, I think it's possible. Okay. And you should know this person that I was talking to about Jennifer Kessie's disappearance has the opinion that she did disappear Tuesday morning and not Monday night. So, and you know how I feel about that. So it goes back to, so to put this person's, I guess, theory together is that this person was admiring Jennifer from afar, stalking her, was waiting for her when she came out, and this person abducted, I guess, and murdered her all by himself. I don't know. What I'm talking about is 11 years, or at least one of them anyway. Yeah. Okay, Carrie. Let's get to, so I just wanted to run that by you. Maybe all of you can start digging into that and see what you find if that theory's out there. I'll give you something to work on, I guess. Let's talk about Friday's disappearance. It is the disappearance of Jeremy Goodwin. He disappeared on December 23rd, 1998, another case from 1998. The guest will be his mother, Barbara Yeager, and he disappeared from Texarkana, Arkansas. The title for this episode is Fighting the Affliction, because in Jeremy's case, for at least 10 years before his disappearance, he had been suffering from Crohn's disease. It sounds to me like a very serious version of it. And on the night that he disappeared, he had been taken by ambulance to the hospital because it was so bad. And he was there for 3 or 4 hours. And then he called his mother, Barbara, from the hospital saying, hey, can you come pick me up? Well, but due to the weather that night, and as you will hear Barbara say it, her husband, her new husband, not Jeremy's father, but she had just been married a few years at that time. You know, he said, gave her the suggestion, no, he can find his own way home, because Jeremy had his issues going on. And because of that, Barbara said, no, and he said, okay, well, I'll get a taxi. Well, he disappears, and then 2 weeks after his disappearance, a man comes forward. His name is Jonathan Stewart, to say that he picked Jeremy up that night walking along the road near the hospital and dropped him off at a place called the Ritz Motel, which, as you would probably imagine, rough motel. A lot of drug dealers and people like that living at this place. And Jeremy was never seen again. after he was dropped off there. And once again, once this person, Jonathan, found out that, in the news that Jeremy was missing, he came forward to say, yeah, I picked him up that night. He was walking along the road. It was very, very cold out. He was only wearing like a short sleeve shirt, and I picked him up, and that's where he wanted to go, and that's where I took him. And after Jonathan dropped Jeremy off, Jeremy was never seen again, although there was a collect call that was made that Barbara believes was Jeremy. However, if this was Jeremy calling for collect, at the time, Barbara's stepson was on the phone. And when he went to the other line, it was, hey, somebody wants to make a collect call, and he had been instructed to never take any collect calls, so he refused it. And to this day, Barbara believes that was Jeremy calling again. But he is still missing. And you're going to hear about the guy that picked him up. You're going to hear about him a little bit more. You're going to hear about all of the things surrounding the Ritz Motel and what Barbara eventually found out when she went over there. And I have to tell you, she is a person who did a lot of investigating on her own, not waiting for the police, which I thought, as you know, I think is excellent. So you're going to be hearing about a lot of her firsthand accounts in talking to some of these people at the Ritz Motel. And, of course, they say they never saw Jeremy there. But that is, and we're once again fighting the affliction. The reason it's titled that is two reasons. One, because Jeremy was fighting an affliction, Crohn's disease. And also because we here at Unfound, we see disappearances as a disease that needs to be eradicated. And so we on our own are kind of fighting the affliction as well. And so that is the theme for Friday's episode. And once again, it's Jeremy Goodwin. He is on NamUs. He is on the Charlie Project. Texarkana, Arkansas. And he disappeared December 23rd, 1998, 2 days before Christmas. And the guest for this episode is his mother, Barbara Yeager. So, there you go. That is, I think, is the show for tonight. An hour and 17 minutes. That's pretty long. Let me see what EB says here. EB says there's Chinese boxes in Jennifer's fridge. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Maybe there is something to that rumor then. Theory. Okay. Well, if you find out anything regarding that theory regarding Jennifer Cassie that I just put out there, just email me or find me on Facebook, write me personally, and let me know anything more you find out about that, because I certainly want to hear about it. But I'm going to go. What did we do tonight? We talked about me playing disc golf fairly well this past weekend. I should have won, but didn't. My fault. The lighting, looking good. Ex-police chief, Leechburg Police Chief Mike Diebold and all the problems he's gotten into. The Patrick Reed poll. We talked about Kobe Bryant and the crash of his helicopter. Talked about YouTube and all the improvements that are happening there. Talked about Patreon, both the blogs and the think tank. Please consider it. And talked about Kristen Smart, how no new news on that, despite everything that was going on like a week and a half ago. And I told you all about this theory that I heard recently regarding Jennifer Cassie's disappearance. Took some questions from Larry, Leah, and Suzanne, and then we ended with talking about Friday's episode, The Disappearance of Jeremy Goodwin. That's all I got. Give this video a like, as Christine is saying. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and you will hear me Friday. And then some of you in the think tank, we're doing the think tank this week on Monday because the Super Bowl is Sunday. Night, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.